that. We're going to talk more about all of this now with our EU correspondent, Dave Keating. Dave, the EU is Israel's largest trading partner. Is there any likelihood it would suspend this cooperation deal as Spain wants?
Today, there isn't much likelihood, but there is real movement on this issue and a whole bunch of other issues having to do with Israel. That's as a result of real anger here in Europe about Israel's latest actions in Lebanon, but also as a result of the change of government in Hungary. Viktor Orban was Benjamin Netanyahu's best friend in the council. He was vetoing attempted actions for sanctions on Israeli settlers, for instance, and so there's new possibilities here. And yesterday, the EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, noted that explicitly, that on this, in February, there was this attempt to have a vote for sanctions against violent Israeli settlers in the West Bank. That was vetoed by Viktor Orban's government. Now they could try again. The issue is that we're still in transition here. The new government of opposition leader Peter Magyar is not yet in place. So the person sitting in Hungary's seat today is still Viktor Orban's government, which is why we're unlikely to see a vote today, but that could be coming. Then separately, that issue of sanctions requires unanimity in the Council because it's a foreign policy issue. But then separate to that, we have this EU-Israel Association Agreement, which has been in place since 2000. It underpins all of the rules for EU-Israeli trade. And because that's a trade issue rather than a foreign policy issue, decisions on that can be taken by qualified majority voting. That is, majority votes that take into account each country's size. Now, we have this call from Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez to suspend that agreement. He is joined in that by Ireland and Slovenia, but they don't have, at the moment, anywhere near enough numbers in the Council to get that passed. But all eyes will be on the French and Italian foreign ministers today because their positions may be wavering. Particularly, Italy is one to watch. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has been very close in alliance with Benjamin Netanyahu, but lately that relationship is fraying because of public pressure in Italy, where Israel's actions in Gaza, Lebanon, and Iran are very unpopular. That could shift. Now, the big opposition there would be Germany. Germany will most likely always vote against such a move, so we have to see if they can start getting close to the numbers. Again, no possibility for a vote on that today, though. And then finally, there's this kind of compromise idea that came from the French and Swedish government. They co-signed a letter asking that just the West Bank products, so products made by Israelis in the West Bank, be excluded from the association agreement and therefore banned from import in the European Union. They say because the terms of the association agreement don't cover it. Out of the three, that's the one we could actually see a vote on today. So we'll have to wait and see if they can get any movement today. But even if there's no votes today, things are moving pretty fast on the Israel issue here in the EU.
And all of this is happening, Dave, as there in Brussels, where you are, the EU is hosting a Palestinian peace conference with more than 60 nations attending. Tell us a bit more about what's happening there.
Yeah, this is the 9th session of this two-state solution alliance. This has been going on for a number of years. They're trying to find ways to move the two-state solution closer. But of course, that has been difficult over the past 3 years when the prospect of a two-state solution seems to be growing more and more distant. And this issue of the Israeli settlers in the West Bank has really been key to that is seen as such a huge block toward progress toward a two-state solution. Now, yesterday, the Palestinian Authority's premier is here in Brussels, and he was really calling for the EU to take actions against those settlers and also to pressure Israel on withholding tax revenue from the PLA and from Gaza. So they've been talking about these issues. As you say, it brought together 60 countries, also NGOs, but the mood is pretty dire for this group. When I've talked to people, compared to years past, it seems like progress toward that two-state solution is growing more and more distant. But as I say, because of that change in government in Hungary, there may be new possibilities for the EU to put pressure on Israel.
Dave, thanks for that. Dave Keating there reporting for us from Brussels.